Hello everybody, welcome back to Lazio Lounge. Not the best episode ever, unfortunately, because with this defeat against AC Milan, Lazio is probably out of the Champions League race. I don't know, Alistair McKenzie, if you agree with me.
Well, it's a long way back, certainly. I mean, obviously not out mathematically quite yet, but when I was doing the podcast last weekend, I said that we definitely weren't out at that stage, but we would need a result from this game against Milan to stand a chance. So, it's a real disappointment, obviously, and particularly the manner of the defeat as well as the actual result itself.
I would say, Alistair, again, this is not the first time that the Lazio lost a match that could go either way. Immobile hit the post in the first half. Lazio didn't play that bad, and Milan didn't have that many chances. But a costly mistake cost Lazio 3 points, and this is not the first time. So, yes, Lazio didn't play that bad and could have won this match. But unfortunately, again, it didn't go our way.
Yeah, that's it. It does feel like this whole season, that's really been the story of the season, that it's just kind of small margins not going in our way. But the team's only really got themselves to blame in that regard. I've read as well, Ciro Immobile has hit the post more than anyone in Europe this season apart from Lionel Messi. Apparently he's hit the post now 8 times this season. So you can read into that whatever you want, whether it's bad luck or bad accuracy. But again, if that goes a couple of inches to one side, if Pepe Reina's a bit slower to get down in that very first save with about 3 minutes gone, and obviously if the penalty decisions had gone differently as well, then it's a different match. And I don't think a draw would have been a disaster either. I think Lazio being able to take any points from that result would have really kept us in the race. But as it is now, I think we need 2 things to happen. We need to return to form ASAP, because that's 1 point from the last 3 games now. But also we need favours from other teams. We need the teams around us to start dropping points, and that's not a good position to be in at this stage of the season, and that's really why I think that probably the Coppa Italia is now the main focus, to be honest.
Yes, and the thing is, after the derby, we were all thinking, wow, Lazio enter the final phase of the season in top form, and just after a couple of weeks, it looks like the team is done, which is surprising. And on the other side, we were thinking, well, Roma has no chance to fight for the Champions League, and now it's ahead of us. And I think now the fight is going to be between Milan and Roma, which, it's not great for us to see.
No, I was covering the Roma game last night, and again, it was really kind of shows the difference, isn't it? They didn't play particularly well. They haven't been recently, but that's now they've got 2 1-0 wins back to back, and they managed to get a result and 3 points last night from terrible weather conditions and not a particularly good performance, but they still managed. And I think that's a lesson that Lazio need to really could do with learning, is that we have had games this season where that's happened, where Lazio haven't played well and have managed to get results against smaller teams, but all too often recently that's been different, and the performances haven't been too bad, but the results have. But the more worrying thing has been recently that the performances haven't been good and the results haven't been good. And but like you say, I suppose, Vittorio, the other thing is things do change, or at least they can change so quickly. Like you say, after the derby, we thought the momentum was with us. After the Inter game, we thought the momentum was with us. And now we've got games against Udinese and Chievo. I think we absolutely have to take 6 points from that to stand any chance whatsoever. And if we do, then you just never know, really, to be honest, because things can change so quickly. But so I wouldn't give up on it. And in a way, I don't know if you agree with this, but in a way, I think Lazio are almost better when there's less expectation on the team. I think we're more likely to perform when we're perhaps being disregarded a bit in this Champions League race.
I agree with you, and the thing is, Lazio must win these 2 matches, because now we are struggling to get to the Europa League. So, these 6 points would be really, really important, at least to keep up the Europa League position in the league. You said that probably the main focus now is Coppa Italia, and I think I agree with you. But still, it would be good to finish this season in the top 6, because after playing against Milan, Roma, and Inter, I don't think they are a much better team than Lazio. I think the biggest difference is, as you said, the details. Roma, Milan, Inter managed to win matches when they didn't play well, while Lazio did this only at the beginning of the season. If you remember, we were saying, yes, Lazio didn't play well, but started winning those matches where they didn't play well. That it's typical of big teams. And now instead, Lazio's not playing well, or maybe it's playing slightly better than the other team, and not able to win matches against Spal, Sassuolo, and Milan. So Lazio have to be careful on this point and this side, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And Udinese as well are, we're facing them at a bad time, I would say, because since Igor Tudor came back in there, they've turned their season around a bit and played very well. And we're unlucky last night. I wouldn't say they deserved to win the game necessarily, but they really did give Roma a difficult afternoon, and I expect them to do the same. So I don't think that's going to be an easy game. It's a team that's fighting for survival, which is also not necessarily the kind of team we want to be playing. But Chievo may well be relegated by the time we play them, so that there's absolutely no excuse with Chievo. And to be honest, I think by the time we get there, if we can't beat Chievo, or a Chievo team that's already relegated and bottom of the league, then we just don't deserve it. You have to just put your hands up at that stage and say, well, if you don't beat Chievo, you don't deserve European football.
I think Chievo is already mathematically relegated, but the biggest problem about Udinese is that Luis Alberto receive a yellow card, so he won't be able to play, and we don't know Correa's situation. He came off yesterday for an injury, so options. Inzaghi doesn't have that many options, considering that Berisha probably season is off. Who would you play, Caicedo, or would you give a chance to Pedro Neto?
Well, I'd love to see Neto get a chance, to be honest. I mean, I just don't see... I don't think we're going to get anything different from Caicedo. He does occasionally have a very good game this season. He's had a few very good games, but more often than not, and particularly recently, that's not happened. And I think by introducing Neto, at least as a substitute, at least it brings us something fresh, gives us a different dimension, a different kind of way of attacking the opposition. And it was quite obvious in the game last night. The difference between Correa and Caicedo is like night and day in terms of the approach they have to the game. And Correa was really, he was causing them problems because he's very direct. He can pick the ball up in wide positions or deep positions, and he can run at defenders, and he makes them very nervous. And he's got the vision to be able to play passes into players once he's drawn the defenders to him. But Caicedo just doesn't stretch the defence in that way at all. He stays very central. He kind of takes the ball in and lays it off, and he makes runs towards the edge of the box. But he doesn't really cause any problems or ask any questions of the defence. And I think Neto, at least he would do that. I think he would take a similar approach to Correa from what we've seen from him so far. He'd like to drift out wide. He'd like to have a run at players. So I guess it just depends what kind of approach you're wanting to take in these games. But I think if we're playing teams who are at the bottom end of the table, then why not? Why not give them a go? Having said that, even if that's what I want to happen, it's not at all what I expect to happen. I would be very, very confident that Caicedo will be starting against Udinese on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think there's the other option is to move Milinkovic-Savic in that position and maybe play Parolo and Cataldi there in midfield. But yeah, I think Lazio maybe need a sort of fresh start, give other players option. And this brings me to Durmisi. I think we have to talk about that because we were quite happy at the beginning of the season seeing him playing some matches. He looks like having qualities. But in the last month or so, he started making a lot of mistakes. Now, I don't know if you agree. I thought the penalty of yesterday was really silly. It wasn't needed, and it's unfortunately it's not the first time that happens. 1 week ago was Patrick. Then we made other stupid mistakes. There's always someone new that make silly mistakes. And you remember we said that the Durmisi could leave Lazio this winter, and then the things didn't go through. Do you think that this is the final the final sentence of Durmisi with Lazio? Is the last time we're going to see him?
Not necessarily, no. I think that, to be honest, a lot of the reaction to this has been a bit over the top, and I understand people's frustration with Durmisi because it was such a stupid penalty to concede, and I think it was a penalty. I think it was a clumsy challenge, and there's absolutely no need to do it. The guy he's making the tackle on is Musacchio. He's a centre-back, and he's got his back to goal, or at least he's turned to goal. So even if he allows Musacchio to take the ball down, it's not like he's in a position where he's definitely going to score. I think it was just a really poor decision by Durmisi. Obviously, he hadn't been on the pitch that long, so he's got that on his side to a little bit, to a certain extent. But no, I think with Durmisi, you have to take into consideration a few things. He's had problems with injuries throughout the season. Obviously, I think it dislocated his elbow very early on in the European game. He's also been given very few chances from the start. It's been more or less just bench appearances he's had. And I think my take on things generally is that players who are coming into Serie A for the first time deserve a second season to be able to show what they've got, and you shouldn't just write them off for one, particularly if he's hardly played. I think we all hoped and expected a lot more from him than what we've seen this season, but I wouldn't say it's the end of his Lazio career, and I think the fans who are calling for him to be sold immediately after giving away a penalty should take a step back from it a little bit, because it was a bad mistake, but then again, we've not seen an awful lot from him yet, and I think there's more to him than what we've seen so far, I'd say.
Yes, though this is a costly mistake. I fear that there are a lot of players in the Lazio squad that are costing Lazio a lot of points. Not that they are bad. I mean, Patrick played a couple of fine matches and so on, but they tend to make stupid mistakes, and if you're fighting for a Champions League spot, for example, you can afford to allow these mistakes to happen to your team. Instead, they're going on all year long, pretty much.
Yeah, and how long has that been the case for? It's crazy, really. There's a lot of individual mistakes. Don't get me wrong, it's not just individual errors that are costing Lazio, but there definitely are, like you say, a lot of players who are committing them. And usually we have certain players who become kind of scapegoats for that, whether it was Mauricio originally and then Bastos and Wallace. But yeah, like you say, Patrick's made errors. Now Durmisi, Radu's even made errors. Cherby's even made a bad error once this season. So, yeah, I think a lot of it is about concentration, about focus, and we seem to have very distracted players. But just on Durmisi for a second, I mean, you mentioned there how he was being talked about possibly being sold in January, and if you actually look at the signings we brought in last summer, the same's already been said for Milan Badel. There was talk about him being sold in January, and Valon Berisha, there's been talk about him going already after just one season. So, it's not been a good season for new signings at all. And if you're going to say who's the biggest disappointment between them, it's quite hard to pick a winner, really, to be honest.
I would go on Berisha, and I was thinking this morning that of all the summer transfer, Acerbi is by far the best, and I think he had a tough role to come in and replace De Vrij. He did it perfectly. We can say that Correa did well. I don't know if he did better than expected. I thought he did better than Felipe Anderson last year. But after this, we had Berisha was really looking forward for him, and I think I've said it often in the podcast. I thought Berisha could become the best signing of the summer. instead I think he was really, really good against Parma away, and then had a couple of decent matches, and then all pretty much he didn't play because he was always injured. But apart from that, Badel, same thing. Durmisi as well, terrible. All the signing didn't really turn on, didn't really perform this year, apart from two. So yes, this is really concerning, I would say.
I'd probably throw Romulo into that as well. I think he's been pretty good since he came in, obviously in January instead of last summer. But yeah, I think that's just been a bit of a disappointment because it's not like Lazio are forking out enormous sums, but they have paid a good amount of money to bring in these guys.
Yes, but
we expected more. Berisha, I still can't really make up my mind with it. It's more that his fitness problems than anything else, because he's just been injured all the time this season. And we've not really had much of a chance to see him. And most of the time when he's been on the pitch, you've been able to say either, he's just coming back from injury or, he's getting another injury. And there's been very few opportunities for him to actually get a few games under his belt, play with some sort of continuity, back-to-back games, play 90 minutes. I'll have to look it up, but I can't remember Berisha playing back-to-back 90-minute games this season. So I think there is more to come from him, but he just needs to stop getting injured.
Yeah, I think he started just one match in Serie A, so it's not possible that he played 90 minutes back-to-back. And I agree with you, he got injured very often. And the funny thing is that when this happened, you go back and see, okay, let's see his history. And I think he didn't have any injured in the past couple years. So yeah, is it bad luck for Lazio? Is it something else? I don't know. But yes, that was really a negative season for him. And as you said, I think next year he would perform better. I don't think Lazio is going to sell him. I don't think he wants to leave. He needs to prove to be a better player. And I would add in the mix him and Proto. It's true that he played really, really little, but I think one of the reasons is because he didn't convince Simone Inzaghi. He played a couple of matches, I think 2 matches in Europe League, and wasn't amazing. And yeah, he came here to challenge a little bit Strakosha, but it turned out to not be the case. He hardly played, so I don't know if you can value him a disaster or something like that. I don't think so, but I think we all were expecting more from him as well.
Well, I think we were expecting him at least to play all the European games and then the Coppa Italia games, at least the early ones, but he only played 4 of the 6 group games in the Europa League, as far as I remember, before Strakosha was brought back in. So I wouldn't say, you might say, we lost 4-1 to Frankfurt. I don't think we can really blame that on Proto, though. I think Proto's definitely a better or a more reliable backup than we certainly had last season. So I've just got up Berisha's stats for the season. He's actually only played one 90-minute game in all competitions, which was the 2-0 defeat to Apollon Limassol.
Wow.
So it's not exactly been his greatest season, and in Serie A there's only been one match that he's played more than 45, which was the 1-0 win against Empoli back in February. He played 77 minutes. He's not played any 90-minute games in Serie A, and most of them have been quite short substitute appearances. So yeah, I think with Berisha, we've got to give him a bit more time, because when you look at his run of games, muscular problem in September, muscular problem in December, muscular problem in February, and now he's got a knee problem in April, and these are all separate incidents. So the guy's falling to pieces. I don't know what's going on.
Let's hope it's not the case. Otherwise, it has been a terrible signing. What I wanted to say about the signing, and to close up this discussion, is, if you notice, players that Lazio bought and spent more than 10 million euros are the one that perform well. The one under that tag didn't perform well. Now, this doesn't mean for me that if you spend 12 millions, let's think about Schick for Roma, 42 millions, and he's a disaster. But normally, when Lazio spend all that money for a player, he usually is very good. So my idea would be, instead of signing 7 players every season, let's do 3, but spending more money and be sure that they're quality players instead of players like Durmisi that I think don't add that much value to the team.
Yeah, I think part of that perhaps is just that everyone, like in the Calcio Serie A world in general, seems to have kind of fallen in love with Iglitari over the last couple of years. I think probably because of guys like Milinkovic-Savic, who's managed to bring through, and Lucas Leiva and Luis Alberto on very cut-price deals, and got the best out of them. But a lot of these people overlook the fact that he's got a lot of things wrong as well. There have been a lot of very bad transfers under Iglitari's watch, and I think he is often very good at finding value in different markets, and I think Adam Maricic is a good example of that more recently, in terms of the value we bought him for and now his sell-on value he'd have now. But I don't think that that's a model to base your entire transfer market on. I think you do need to, like you say, there's a reason that players are given valuations, which is that you know that they're of a certain quality. So I think for this team to grow, what this season has proven really is that you need to have players you can trust and not be having to spend months trying to integrate players, trying to find the best position for them, trying to make them adapt to a new league. All of that takes time, and it is worth it quite often. But I think as well, to actually be able to qualify for the Champions League, to be able to really push up the table, we have to be able to invest in known quality, and there's no reason Lazio shouldn't be doing that. If you look at Luis Muriel going to Fiorentina, if you look at Gabbiadini going to Sampdoria, there are teams out there who are smaller than Lazio and have smaller financial possibilities than Lazio who are willing to bring in known quality. So, yeah, I think hopefully that's a lesson for the summer. But there is money as well. We know they've got money. It's just a case of spending it, and that we all know that because that's the thing that most fans complain about when it comes to Lotito, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. Alistair, what do you think about the fact that Inzaghi didn't speak yesterday after the match?
I don't know. He got sent off. I don't know if that's anything to do with it.
No.
He had Milan fans throwing bottles at him as he was being sent off. I can't imagine he was in the best of moods after what happened and having refereeing decisions, and probably he would have embarked on another one of his VAR rants. I don't know if the team's press office didn't want him to do that. I don't know. I'm not really sure what the circumstances were around it.
Yeah, because anyway, Tari spoke about the VAR, so if he didn't want to, then he should have sent even Iglitari there. I don't have the stat, but I think that every time Rocchi refereed a match of Lazio with Inzaghi on the bench, Inzaghi didn't finish the match. I think he has been sent off every time with Rocchi as a referee. So I think he was really pissed off. But I think you had the chance there to go in the press conference said, hey, how can it be possible that every time Rocchi referees me, I get sent off?
Yeah, that's interesting actually. I didn't realise that. Every single time?
I'm not sure it's every single time, but for sure it happened last year. I remember Inzaghi saying it, so...
Yeah, and it's not ideal, it's not going to help matters, and I always think it's a bit of a frustrating thing to see in a way. You should know better, and you can understand sometimes that you can lose your cool in the heat of battle, but when it keeps happening time and time again, same goes for guys like Walter Mazzari, and you just wonder why they're not learning the lesson.
But yesterday I saw the images and he didn't do nothing bizarre, I didn't think it was a yellow card to Luis Alberto, and he just shouted to the ref and he was sent off. I think if this happens, if this is applied to every other coaches, no one will finish the match in any single matches,
Well, yeah, it depends what he's shouted to Rocky, though, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know that, but yeah, I suppose he has every right to send him off if he's said something that he deems to be crossing the line, but I can't say what that was.
Okay, what do you thought about the performance of let's say, the stars of Lazio, Immobile, Correa, Milinkovic-Savic, and Luis Alberto? Because I thought in the second half, Ciro Immobile didn't do pretty much nothing.
No.
And when Correa went out, Lazio stopped playing a little bit. I was expecting Milinkovic-Savic and Luis Alberto to step up, and they didn't. So, what's your thought?
Well, to be honest, I thought the whole game was just a repeat of what we've seen so many times this season in big games, and it was very frustrating because Lazio seemed to have turned a corner recently in terms of their performances in big matches by actually beating Inter and Roma, obviously, Inter twice. But then this was kind of like the early season games, and the game against Juventus as well. Well, both games against Juventus, the game against Napoli at the start of the season, the game against Milan, where Lazio start very brightly, create good chances, dictate the game, and then in the second half basically just start to retreat. And Lazio conceded more goals in the last 15 minutes of games than any other team in the league now, and that's a really worrying statistic. And it's a really, it doesn't make our lives easier as fans. But in terms of the star players, I think they started well, like the rest of the team. I thought that Correa and Immobile in the first half were looking very dangerous. Immobile was unlucky not to have scored. But yeah, like you say, again, in the second half, he just went missing. And we had a lot of people complaining when I did the show last week about him, how often he's offside at the moment, and he was at that again. He just never seemed to be timing his runs right. And as for Alberto and Milinkovic, I just don't think they quite asserted themselves on a game of that importance in the way that we need them to get a result. And that was disappointing because I really, really hoped, despite the 2 games going into this, the memory being so fresh of getting that win against Inter at San Siro and the performance that they put in, it was almost the perfect away performance that game, defending well but punishing them on the counter-attack and creating chances. And I was just really hoping that they'd be able to pull that out of the bag again, but I just think in comparison between the 2 games, those guys just didn't quite get to the same standard again.
No, I agree with you, and I think we said it already, that if they turn on, Lazio can beat everybody, any team, but if they don't, then Lazio become a very, I wouldn't say easy opponent, but doesn't bring nothing special to the table, so it's not very difficult to stop Lazio attacking if Milinkovic-Savic and Luis Alberto doesn't invent something special. And I think one of the reasons why Lazio allowed so many goals at the end of the match is because players like Lulic that are very important to the team are getting older, and you can see them every single match. Lulic at a certain point is destroyed, and Inzaghi has to take him off most of the time. But it's not only Lulic, I think.
And then brings Durmisi on.
Yeah, which it doesn't help. If you think Inzaghi brought in Durmisi and took off Lulic, while Milan was able to put in Cutrone, that last year was a starter. Now you can say that maybe Cutrone is not a great player, etc., but still, it should be considered a better player than Durmisi. So I think maybe the fact that our midfield is getting older, and so they tend to be very tired at the end of the match. You can add to the equation that even Radu is not very young, etc. So even our defense is not very young. I think that can make a big difference.
Yeah, we talked about this a bit last weekend, because I can't remember who it was now, but someone had tweeted us about that, asking about if it's a fitness issue. I was saying, I think you're right. I think in terms of tiredness, I do think that obviously plays a part, but I also think that we leave ourselves far too open in games if they're not tied up by the time the last 15-20 minutes arrives. And I think that Inzaghi and his Lazio team are just so desperate to win matches that if it's still 0-0 or if we're 1-0 down or whatever the score is, with that long left, the caution is thrown to the wind and everyone kind of starts piling forward and leaves these huge spaces, especially with this kind of fantasy Lazio set up. If Milinkovic and Alberto are pushing high up, the wing-backs are pushing high up, and suddenly the ball's played out in midfield, and you see it time and time again, and it's just our back three and Lucas against a wave of opposition attackers. And this happens quite regularly, and obviously fitness is part of the issue and tiredness is, but I also think that the strategy of going gung-ho, doing everything to score a goal, often means that we leave ourselves too exposed and can concede goals that way as well.
Yeah, I agree, and this is the problem why, because Lazio doesn't, take the lead early in the match and control the match, like, for example, in the derby. Instead, we're still there, 0-0 or maybe 1-0. And the other thing is, often when Lazio score, they immediately allow the other team to get a goal back, so they're never able to close the match. And in the end of the match, maybe you are desperate mode and attack with all the players, or sometimes you're tired, and this can it's costing Lazio a lot of matches, a lot of points, unfortunately. So I think this is one of the reasons why Lazio is not probably getting to the Champions League this year, because I think overall Lazio is not a weaker team than Milan, Inter, or Roma, but making too many mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. And all the teams. We talked about this last weekend as well. Is that everyone's made mistakes in this Champions League race, and what I was saying was that we know that this Lazio team isn't as good as the team last season, and that their performances haven't been the same level. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't qualify for the Champions League, because overall the standard of the teams has been very inconsistent, from Inter to Torino and everyone in between. All these teams have had real issues with inconsistency this season, not just Lazio. So we don't necessarily need to be as good as last season to reach the Champions League, but the fact is that we've been way below the levels of last year. I think that all these little mistakes that haven't been corrected throughout the course of the season have ultimately just added up to mean that it's very unlikely to happen now. But we do still have a better run-in than a few of the other teams. Unfortunately, Milan and Roma have decent runs too, although Roma still have to play Juve. But I do hope that at least before the end of the season we can overtake Atalanta and Torino and get in a top 6 Europa League place. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not really sure. I've still not quite decided what I think that the objectives are now. It's quite hard to say. I think we need to get this game in hand out of the way before anything, because I just find myself constantly reverting back to this game in hand and saying, oh, well, the table looks like this, but Lazio have a game in hand. And I think it'll be a lot easier to decide what we think is possible once we've played that and we know what the result of that actually is and where we stand.
Thinking that Lazio have played Juventus and Napoli at the beginning of the season and Roma still have to play, do you think it was an advantage, thinking that Juventus won the Scudetto and yesterday was able to lose against Spal because playing with a third squad?
What, an advantage for Roma, you mean?
Yeah, now that they're going to play against Juventus that has nothing to ask from the league and could easily play the Primavera again.
Well, yeah, sure. I think it has to be, doesn't it? I mean, we saw yesterday Juve going to Spal knowing they only needed a draw, and they, playing, I think, 4 players who'd never played in Serie A before, including substitutes. They're bringing back Barzali and Quadrado from injury, and basically, they end up losing because of the great Sergio Flockery, but it goes to show that, and Allegri said that after the game very explicitly, that our concentration is on the Champions League because we've won the Scudetto, basically. And that kind of goes against everything he said the rest of the season, but it's true. There's no way they aren't going to win this league now. So I'd like to think that they have the professionalism that they're going to take a big game like that seriously enough and pose a real challenge. But yeah, it's hard to say. I think that, to answer your question, though, definitely, I think that is an advantage for them over us, that they do get to play Juventus when they have no real motivation beyond professional pride left. But, it's the way it is. They could easily say, well, we have the advantage of having our run in without any more big teams left to play. So there is that as well. I think you can look at it in either way, really.
Alistair, we have to wrap it up here. Thanks again for joining me. To all our listeners, thanks for your support. Remember our Patreon page, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. And please rate and review our podcast wherever you hear it, on Spreaker, on iTunes, on Spotify, on YouTube, so that we can gain a little bit of visibility. Thank you again, Alistair, and we're going to talk again probably Wednesday, I think, after Lazio Udinese.
Yeah, cheers. See you then.
Thank you very much. Bye.